This is my recording for my final project. Yeah, here we go. My study was so this little part of my introduction that I put in says the purpose of this cross-sectional and retrospective study will be to find if there are any correlations between the experience college adults had as children in PE and how physically active they are now. And then my hypothesis was that enjoyment in PE as children does have an impact on current physical activity levels. Um, sorry, it's a weird angle. So basically, after my research, it was found that physical activity, obviously, I mean, maybe it's not obvious to everyone, but a lot of research has been done on physical activity, and it does improve overall health, reduce obesity rates, heart disease rates. But it's also proven that physical activity rates are declining in all people. College adults tend to be more sedentary, and only about 18% of them report being physically active at least 5 times a week or 5 days out of the week. And so this is important because if physical activity and physical enjoyment or enjoyment in physical education as children has an effect on how physically active adults are, then we can find new ways to improve enjoyment and thus improve overall physical activity in adults and physical health. So for my methods section, the surveys I use, I did a cross-sectional survey study using the Youth Physical Activity Attitude Scale, which is the YPAS, and that was used in the past tense, which has been proven valid in another study, along with the International Physical Activity Questionnaire, which is I'm pretty sure it's the gold standard for physical activity questions. So the Youth Physical Activity Attitude Scale had numbers 1 through 4. I reverse coded the ones that were negatively addressed and then totaled up a score. So like the answer would be like yes, no, mostly yes, no way, and then in order 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 being the most positive. So a question could be physical activity was important for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 being yes, absolutely. 1 being no way. And so then those scores were added. I calculated them. And then for the International Physical Activity Questionnaire, they ask questions such as how many minutes a week do you spend doing moderate to vigorous activity? And they put them in minutes. And then the minutes were added up for moderate and vigorous physical activity. And so that is how the scores were created. I did have to clean quite a bit of data because not everyone answered both of the questionnaires. Not everyone gave demographics, things like that. I had to, like I said, I reverse coded the data. And then I put that all into a linear regression because um, both the independent and dependent variables were continuous, and there's one true continuous variable. So here are the results. Here are some of the descriptives. So on average, people scored pretty high on the YPAS because there were 12 questions and each question is 1 through 4. So the highest score you could get was a 48 and the mean was 44. So overall, people did enjoy physical activity, and on average, they spent 118 minutes doing moderate to vigorous physical activity per week, I think. And so that was interesting because most people did enjoy physical activity as children, but not everyone was physically active. And yes, the p-value we got was 0.283, which means that it's insignificant when compared to alpha of 0.05. So yes. And that was me realizing that my data was found insignificant, waiting for my p-value to be blank. Yeah, Pablo score. So because the p-value was greater than 0.05, we failed to reject the null hypothesis. Further research is needed to know if there is a correlation between physical activity enjoyment as children and physical activity participation as college adults. Strengths and limitations. A strength was that the surveys used were valid and reliable, proven to be that. A limitation is that there was a small sample size and that everyone in the sample was a kinesiology student in a Utah state, and that could mean that they're generally more physically active already because it's something we're interested in. And yes, so an error that could have been made is a type 2 error because we failed to reject the null hypothesis. It could be a false negative. The data was insignificant, like I said before, because there wasn't enough people in the sample. The subjects all had similar interests already, and it would have been hard to apply this outside of our classroom because of the situation that we're in. So it's just hard to get an accurate read on the situation with the time and the limits that we had. So that's me, that little cat, sad cat. But anywho, thank you for watching. Pretty sure that's the end. And yes, thanks for a great semester.